In 1981, 5 young rock band members from California vanished on a private jet flight. Their plane disappeared from radar without a trace. For 19 years, the musicians remained missing, their fate a complete mystery that baffled investigators. But then, a Navy deep-sea expedition pulls something shocking from the ocean floor, a discovery that would expose a dark truth no one was prepared for. The afternoon light filtered through the lace curtains of Henry Hayes' modest living room in Crescent Harbor, casting delicate patterns across the worn pages of his book. At 63, Henry had learned to find peace in simple moments like these, his reading glasses perched on his nose as he lost himself in the familiar comfort of a well-loved novel. The small coastal town of Northern California had been his refuge for nearly 2 decades, ever since that terrible day in 1981 when his 20-year-old daughter, Zoey Hayes, the vocalist from the band Crimson Fireline, disappeared. The sharp ring of the kitchen phone shattered the tranquility. Henry sighed, carefully, marking his page before rising from his armchair. His joints protested slightly as he made his way to the kitchen, the linoleum cool beneath his slippered feet. "Hello?" he answered, expecting perhaps a telemarketer or a wrong number. "Mr. Hayes?" The voice was formal, official. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jane Jackson from the United States Navy. I'm calling with the Crescent Harbor Police Department regarding your daughter, Zoey Hayes." Henry's breath caught. After 19 years, he had stopped expecting these calls. "What is this about?" "Sir, we've recovered what we believe to be the private jet your daughter and her band were on when they disappeared. We need you to come to Port Holston Naval Base." The words hit him like a physical blow. Henry gripped the kitchen counter, his knuckles white. "I don't have time for pranks," he said sharply. "My daughter disappeared 19 years ago in a plane crash. I don't believe she's still alive, and I don't want my peace disturbed." He slammed the receiver down before the woman could respond, his hands shaking. The grief he had worked so hard to suppress now threatened to break through. He hadn't just lost Zoey. Shortly after, his wife, Michelle Hayes, had also been taken to a mental ward. Though she was declared normal and released 5 years later, returning to a quiet, isolated life, she had remained distant from Henry and withdrawn from the rest of the community to live a quiet life. The stress of their daughter's disappearance had changed her completely. Henry returned to his chair, but the words on the page blurred. He couldn't focus. The phone rang again, insistent. He let it ring 4 times, 5, 6. Finally, bothered by the persistence, he answered. "Mr. Hayes, please don't hang up." This time, it was a woman's voice, calm and professional. "I'm FBI agent Dana Truitt. I understand this is difficult to believe, but we have indeed recovered the aircraft. The Navy wasn't pranking you, sir. We need you at the base." Henry felt tears prick his eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I thought... I'll come." "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Do you need transportation?" "No, I'll manage." Henry hung up and moved mechanically to get ready. He chose a simple navy suit and comfortable shoes, his movements automatic. As he walked out of his home toward the train station, a familiar car pulled over. The window rolled down, revealing the weathered faces of Patrick and Donna Maddox. "Henry," Patrick's voice was thick with emotion. "Are you heading to Port Holston Naval Base, too?" Henry nodded, unable to speak. He recognized them immediately, despite the years. Tracy's parents. Their daughter had been the bass guitarist in Crimson Fireline. "Come with us," Donna offered, opening the back door. Henry gratefully accepted, settling into the leather seat. Patrick turned to face him. "The Kleins are on their way, too. Danny's aunt and uncle. Her parents passed 2 years ago, and the Marinos, Riley's cousins, will be there. Her parents died of old age already, and Casey's sister, Lauren Linden, is coming too. Her parents are gone as well." The drive took a few hours, filled with tense silence punctuated by Patrick's occasional sniffles. Henry stared out the window, watching the California coastline blur past. When they finally arrived at Port Holston Naval Base, the security was overwhelming. Navy personnel, FBI agents, local police, forensics teams, and what appeared to be expedition scientists. Agent Dana Truitt met them at the gate, her badge gleaming. She was younger than Henry had expected, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Thank you all for coming. I know this is difficult." She led them across the base to an open field. Henry's breath caught when he saw it. The exact jet plane from Michelle's photographs. His wife had taken pictures with their film roll camera before the band took off, wanting to memorialize what she'd called their shooting star career. She developed those photos for memories and police evidence. Now the plane sat before them, a ghost from the past. Rust streaked its once white fuselage. Seaweed hung from the wings like mourning shrouds. The red stripes that had once been so vibrant were now faded to brown. Dr. Martinez, the lead expedition scientist, stepped forward. "We were on a deep-sea ecological expedition with no AA, exploring hydrothermal vents. Our sonar picked up unusual metallic reflections. When our submersible camera confirmed it was an aircraft at 12,000 feet deep, we immediately contacted authorities." He gestured to the plane. "The Navy and FBI collaborated to retrieve it using a heavy-duty marine crane from our research vessel. The wreck was surprisingly intact, door sealed, windows cracked inward. It's remarkable how well preserved the vessel body is." Henry's eyes found several body bags arranged respectfully on tarps near the plane. His heart clenched. "Is that—" Agent Truitt nodded grimly. "That's why we need you here for identification," Dr. Martinez added. "At extreme depths with low oxygen, cold temperatures, and little disturbance, bodies decompose much slower. It's plausible they're still identifiable after 19 years underwater." Patrick Maddox gripped his wife's arm. "Please, we need to see." The officials exchanged glances before carefully unzipping the first bag. Patrick's wail pierced the air. "Tracy, my baby!" Even after 19 years, the red leopard pants were unmistakable. Tracy Maddox, the bass guitarist, who'd always dressed flamboyantly, was identified immediately. The second bag revealed Danny Clean, her leather vest and distinctive belt buckle confirming her identity. Her aunt and uncle collapsed against each other, sobbing. The third bag contained Casey Linden, her studded wristbands and signature bandana unmistakable. Her sister Lauren stood frozen, tears streaming silently. The remaining bags contained women none of them recognized, not the pilot, not flight attendants. They were dressed in expensive suits, now deteriorated, but still suggesting wealth. The girls were supposed to meet with an international record label and producer, Henry said quietly. Some distributor. These women might be part of their company. My wife was the band's manager, but she rarely shared details with me back then. But I believe she had shared everything with the police. Officer Rodriguez, who had handled the original missing persons case, confirmed his account. Michelle Hayes became violent and was diagnosed with acute mental illness shortly after the disappearance. She was released 5 years later and returned to a life of seclusion. We tried reaching out to her, but she refused to come. The forensics team moved in, photographing and examining. One technician looked up sharply. "Gunshot wounds. All victims show evidence of gunfire." Agent Truitt's expression hardened. "Then something very bad happened in the air. They were most likely killed up front. The absence of the pilot suggests the plane was set to autopilot and she parachuted out." Henry felt a spark of desperate hope. "Zoey and Riley's bodies aren't here. Maybe there's a chance they're still alive." "It's possible," the agent conceded. "No one has seen them, but we're changing this from a missing persons case to a criminal investigation." The press arrived like vultures, cameras and microphones thrust forward. A reporter positioned herself before the plane, speaking rapidly to her camera. Crimson Fireline, Zoey Hayes on lead vocals, Tracy Maddox on bass, Danny Clean on rhythm guitar and co-writing, Riley Moreno on lead guitar, and Casey Linden on drums. Many locals remember them from small bar shows. They were beginning to find success selling their music when they vanished. The families were interviewed one by one. When Henry's turn came, he stood before the cameras, his voice steady despite his trembling hands. "I had lost all hope," he admitted. "But with this new evidence, I pray the police will find something more about my daughter." He looked directly into the camera. "Zoey, if you're watching this, please come back to me. Come home." The other families continued grieving publicly, but Henry couldn't. He'd learned to lock his emotions away. When the interviews concluded, a police officer approached. "Mr. Hayes, can we escort you home?" He nodded gratefully. As they walked to the patrol car, he caught sight of the plane one last time. 19 years it had lain in the ocean's depths, keeping its terrible secrets. Now those secrets were surfacing, and Henry wasn't sure he was ready for what they might reveal. The drive home was silent. The young officer seemed to understand he needed quiet. When they reached his house, he walked him to the door. "Sir, if you need anything." "Thank you," Henry said softly. He waited until the patrol car disappeared around the corner before entering his home. Inside his hallway, Henry pressed his back against the closed door and finally let go. The tears came in great heaving sobs, 19 years of grief pouring out in the safety of his own home. He slid down to the floor, his navy suit pooling around him, and wept for his lost daughter, for the girls who died, for all the years of not knowing. After what felt like hours, but was probably 20 minutes, Henry pulled himself together. He used the wall to stand, his knees protesting, and made his way to the small study where his ancient computer sat. The machine hummed to life slowly, and he navigated to his old Usenet forum. He hadn't posted in nearly a decade. The support, Group for Families of Missing Persons, had been his lifeline in the early years, but eventually he'd stopped, unable to bear the constant cycle of hope and disappointment. Now his fingers trembled as he typed, "They found the plane. After 19 years, the Navy pulled it from the ocean. 3 of the girls were inside, shot dead. My Zoey wasn't there. I don't know what to think." Responses came quickly. Some offered prayers and encouragement. Others, perhaps more realistic after years of dashed hopes, cautioned him gently not to expect too much. One message read, "Henry, after 19 years, please protect your heart." He lost track of time reading and responding, the familiar usernames bringing back memories. When he finally glanced at the clock, panic shot through him. His doctor appointment was in 45 minutes and the bus ride took 30. Henry also wanted to visit Michelle at her home. She deserved to know about the plane, regardless of their strained relationship. He grabbed his purse and hurried out, walking as quickly as his aging legs would allow. The bus was pulling away just as he reached the gare. "Stop!" He waved frantically, but the driver didn't see him. Frustrated, he checked the schedule. 40 minutes until the next one. A woman stood at the far end of the bus shelter, keeping her distance, but watching him intently. She was perhaps 50, wearing a faded jacket and jeans. Something about her stare made him deeply uncomfortable. "Nice day," Henry offered, attempting to diffuse the tension. The woman didn't smile. Her eyes were cold, almost hostile. "Saw you on the news this morning," she said flatly. "Your daughter thought she'd be dead by now, probably sinking at the bottom of some trench." Henry recoiled. "What's your problem?" Another bus approached, not his. The woman climbed aboard without another word. Through the window, she continued to stare at him, her expression unreadable but somehow menacing. Henry tried to calm his racing heart. Some people are just cruel, he told himself. They couldn't understand the pain of losing family. He checked his watch. 30 minutes to kill. The payphone outside the local supermarket was 3 blocks away. He could call his wife, let her know about the news. The walk would help clear his head. The supermarket was busy, shoppers moving in and out with their groceries. Henry located the payphone, and dialed his wife's familiar number. He told her everything. Michelle had initially refused to acknowledge anything about the jet plane that had been found, but Henry eventually persuaded her to listen. "I'll be there at 3, he assured her, "right after my doctor's appointment." He hung up and turned to leave. His blood ran cold. The same woman from the bus stop stood directly behind him, having appeared silently. "What?" she said rudely when he gasped. Henry didn't answer. He walked away quickly, his sensible shoes clicking on the pavement. He cast nervous glances over his shoulder. The woman had picked up the payphone receiver, but her eyes followed him as he walked. Something was very wrong. This wasn't coincidence. Henry quickened his pace, suddenly very aware of how vulnerable he was, a 63-year-old man alone on the street. The familiar shops of Crescent Harbor suddenly seemed less comforting. He needed to get somewhere safe, somewhere with people. Henry pushed through the supermarket's automatic doors, immediately feeling safer among the weekend shoppers. The familiar sounds of cartwheels squeaking and cashier scanners beeping helped calm his nerves. He noticed a bus stop sign through the window near the supermarket entrance, closer than walking back to the original stop. The store was well stocked, with fresh produce displays and grocery aisles occupying the first floor. Henry had often shopped here over the years, finding comfort in routine. The escalator to the second floor hummed quietly. He gripped the rail and ascended, thinking about Michelle. She'd always loved National Geographic magazines, even in her current state. The photos seemed to calm her. The second floor opened into the electronics section. Rows of bulky CRT televisions displayed the same image, his own face speaking to reporters just hours ago. The news had already picked up the story. He paused, transfixed by the surreal sight of himself, multiplied across 20 screens, asking his daughter to come home after 19 years. The reporter was saying the footage showed the recovered plane, its rust-covered hull, dripping seawater. A woman with a shopping basket stopped beside him. "Oh my God, that's you, isn't it? You're the father." Before Henry could respond, others began gathering. An elderly woman touched his shoulder gently. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Dear, my niece loved Crimson Fireline." A younger man said, "They played at Mickey's bar every Thursday." The crowd pressed closer, voices overlapping with questions and condolences. Henry felt his chest tightening, overwhelmed by the sudden attention. He tried to step back but found himself hemmed in. "Please give the gentleman some space," a firm voice commanded. Henry looked up hopefully, expecting store security. Instead, the woman from the bus stop pushed through the crowd. Before he could protest, she gripped his wrist and pulled him away. Her hold was iron-strong, despite his attempts to resist. "What are you doing?" he gasped. She didn't answer, steering him toward an emergency stairwell. The door was marked, "Authorized personnel only," but hung slightly ajar. She pushed it open and pulled him inside. The stairwell was dimly lit, concrete walls echoing their footsteps. Henry wrenched his hand free. "Why are you following me?" The woman's expression was cold, professional. "I'm not your savior, sir. I'm here to watch you and deliver a message." She stepped closer, and Henry backed against the wall. "If you talk to anyone about this, police, FBI, anyone, it'll be the end of everything." In one swift motion, she pulled him close and pressed something hard against his stomach. Henry looked down and saw the black metal of a gun. Terror flooded through him. "Please," he whispered. "If you know where my daughter is, if she's alive, you talk. You can wave that chance goodbye," she hissed. "Better sink yourself in the ocean before they find you. The woman who sent me isn't gracious." Henry's mind raced. "How do I know you really know anything about Zoey?" The woman studied him, then spoke quietly. "The lighthouse keeper's daughter. Waits by the shore counting stars that fell before." Henry's blood turned to ice. Those were lyrics from a song Zoey had been writing just before she disappeared. She'd never finished it, never performed it. Only he had heard those words late one night when she'd played the melody on her acoustic guitar. "We know everything," the woman continued. Your doctor appointments every 2 weeks, your Tuesday grocery runs, your wife at Sunset Hills. We've been watching for years. My daughter is really alive? Henry's voice cracked. The woman stepped back, patting her concealed weapon. Keep your mouth shut. We'll talk again, but if you're reckless, if you breathe a word about this to anyone, I won't hesitate. Bad things will happen to you and your girl. She turned and descended the stairs, her footsteps echoing until they faded. Henry stood, frozen, then collapsed against the wall. Tears streamed down his face as he trembled violently. His heart pounded so hard he feared it might give out. The emergency door suddenly opened. A young store employee peered in, concern etched on his face. Sir, are you okay? You shouldn't be here. Do you need me to call a medic? Henry forced himself to stand straighter. No, I'm fine. Just needed a moment. Recognition dawned in the employee's eyes. You're the man from the news. I'm so sorry about your daughter. Thank you, Henry managed, pushing past him. He'd completely forgotten about the National Geographic magazine. All that mattered now was getting away. He found the escalator and descended quickly, gripping the rail with white knuckles. The supermarket exit seemed miles away. Through the glass doors, he spotted his bus approaching. Henry burst outside and half ran, half stumbled toward the stop. The doors had already closed, but the elderly driver saw his desperate waving. Please, he panted. The driver, a kind-faced woman who looked to be in her 70s, reopened the doors. Take your time, dear. Henry climbed aboard, fumbling for his bus pass with shaking hands. Thank you so much. He made his way to the special seating area reserved for the elderly and collapsed into a seat. As the bus pulled away, he glanced back at the supermarket. No sign of the woman, but her words echoed in his mind. We've been watching for years. If Zoey was truly alive, what had she become? Who was that woman? And what price would he have to pay to see her again? Henry stepped off the bus at the hospital complex, his legs still shaky from the encounter at the supermarket. The familiar medical building loomed before him, its beige walls and tinted windows a testament to years of routine visits. He checked in at the reception desk, went through the usual blood pressure checks, and sat in the waiting room until his name was called. Dr. Peterson was efficient as always, reviewing his heart medication and writing new prescriptions. Henry barely heard his reminders about avoiding stress. His mind kept returning to the woman's threat and those impossible song lyrics. When he finally emerged from the appointment, prescription bag in hand, the afternoon sun was already declining. He stood at the bus stop outside the hospital, torn. The woman had warned him explicitly not to talk to anyone, but Michelle deserved to know about the plane. She was still his wife, despite everything. He couldn't simply abandon her. A car horn broke through his thoughts. Across the street, a dark sedan idled. The woman from earlier sat behind the wheel, gesturing him over with a curt nod. Henry's stomach clenched. He considered running back into the hospital, but her earlier words echoed. Bad things will happen to you and your girl. He crossed the road slowly, each step feeling like a betrayal of his better judgment. The woman rolled down her window. Get in the back, she ordered. Henry hesitated. I don't even know who you are. Back seat now. Her tone left no room for argument. Against every instinct, Henry opened the rear door and slid inside. The locks clicked immediately. I know you were planning to visit your wife. You're waiting for the bus to head that way, not back home, the woman said, pulling into traffic. Can't let that happen. I won't say anything about you, Henry protested. I just need to tell her about the plane. She has a right to know. No, you can't just put these on. She tossed a pair of handcuffs onto the back seat. Henry stared at them in disbelief. I don't know you. I don't trust you. I should have called the police. Now you're testing my patience. In one fluid motion, the woman turned and grabbed his wrists, snapping the cuffs on despite his struggles. Make a sound, and I'll kill you right here." Terror paralyzed Henry as she resumed driving. They left Crescent Harbor behind, the familiar streets giving way to highway, then narrow roads lined with towering pines. After what felt like hours, but was probably 40 minutes, she turned onto a dirt track barely wide enough for the car. A cabin appeared through the trees, small, isolated, windows dark. The woman parked and hauled him out, her grip firm on his arm. Inside, the cabin smelled of mildew and old smoke, with sparse furniture, a stone fireplace, little else. "Why are you doing this?" Henry demanded. "The police will look for me. When I don't show up, they'll search. You can't keep me here forever." "I can, and I will. Now you need to be quiet for your own good." She produced a roll of black duct tape and wrapped it around his mouth despite his muffled protests. She stepped outside, pulling out a cigarette and cell phone. Through the window, Henry watched her pace while talking. When she noticed him staring, she moved further away, out of earshot. Henry tested the handcuffs, but they were professional grade, impossible for his arthritic hands to slip. Panic rose in his throat. He was 63 years old with a heart condition, kidnapped by a stranger who claimed to know about his missing daughter. The woman returned, crushing her cigarette under her boot. She moved to the far wall and pressed on. What looked like ordinary wood paneling. A section swung inward, revealing a hidden compartment. She extracted several small packages wrapped in plastic, each containing white powder. Henry's eyes widened. He knew exactly what those were. She ripped the tape from his mouth. He gasped. "What is that?" "You need to swallow these." "Those are drugs." Henry shook his head violently. "I won't. Kill me if you must, but I won't do this. Why are you doing this to me? I'm just a grieving old man who will die soon anyway." The woman set the packages on the table. "My name is Erica Canvo. I have business with your daughter. If you ever want to see her, you'll do exactly what I say." "Please," Henry begged. "I have a heart condition. This could kill me." "If you're any kind of decent woman, there must be another way." Erica drew her gun, pressing it to his temple. "I'm not a good woman. You swallow these packages, or I pull this trigger. 3 seconds. 1, please. 2. With shaking hands, Henry picked up one of the packages. It was small, tightly wrapped. He placed it on his tongue and forced himself to swallow. Then another, and another. 4 in total. "Good." Erica lowered the gun and produced a pill bottle. "Take these. They'll help keep the packages intact inside you." Henry swallowed the pills dry, tears streaming down his face. "Don't ask questions," Erica said. "It's better for everyone, especially you, if you don't know much. This won't kill you. You're just transportation." She recuffed. His hands untied him to a wooden chair with rough rope. "Someone will come for you soon. Keep quiet, and you'll see your girl." Henry sat bound in the dim cabin, packages of drugs sitting like lead in his stomach, wondering what his daughter had become, that this nightmare was the path to her. A few moments passed in the dim cabin. Henry felt the medication taking effect, a heavy drowsiness washing over him. His thoughts became sluggish, disconnected. He prayed it was just the pills Erica had given him, not the packages themselves leaking their contents into his system. The room began to blur at the edges. He felt weightless, as if floating above the chair. Time lost meaning. Was it minutes or hours before he heard the rumble of an approaching vehicle? Through his haze, he saw headlights sweep across the window. A large truck, its outline swirling in his drugged vision. Erica's face appeared before him, her features rippling like water. "Time to go." Her voice seemed to echo from far away. He felt her hands unlocking the handcuffs, untying the rope. His legs barely supported him as she pulled him upright. The world tilted and swayed with each step toward the door. Outside, the night air hit his face like cold silk. Women stood by the truck, dark-haired, speaking rapid Spanish. They looked Mexican, their faces hard and weathered. One grabbed him, roughly pushing him toward the vehicle's rear. "Inside, viejo," she grunted. The truck's cargo area was larger than he'd expected, but the woman didn't leave him in the main space. She pressed on what looked like the interior wall, and a section swung inward, a hidden compartment. "Get in. Stay quiet." Henry ducked through the opening. His drugged eyes adjusted slowly to the darkness. Shapes became people, women, all of them young. Some looked barely 18. They sat pressed against the walls, silent and hollow-eyed. He was the only one over 30, let alone over 60. The realization hit him even through the medication fog. He'd seen this in movies, read about it in newspapers. Human trafficking, drug smuggling. He was part of it now, willingly or not. The secret door closed, plunging them into complete darkness. The truck's engine roared to life and they began moving. Henry found a spot against the wall and sank down, his knees drawn up. Time became meaningless in the dark. The truck stopped occasionally. He could hear muffled voices, sometimes the main cargo door opening, but their hidden compartment remained sealed. The younger women stayed silent, clearly experienced in this horrible routine. Henry dozed fitfully, waking when the truck hit bumps. Gradually, the medication's effects began to fade. His mind cleared, bringing with it the full horror of his situation. He was being smuggled across unknown borders with drugs inside his body, surrounded by trafficked women. After what felt like days but was probably many hours, the truck finally stopped for good. Different voices now, harsh, guttural, speaking, accented English, and what sounded like Russian. The secret panel opened. Bright lights flooded in, making everyone squint. A massive woman stood silhouetted in the opening. "Out, all of you, move!" They stumbled into what appeared to be a warehouse. Concrete floors, metal rafters, the smell of motor oil, and something else, something chemical. More women waited, all with Slavic features, all armed. They were ushered into a side room and ordered to form a line. Adjacent to it was a smaller room, marked with a radiation warning. Henry's legs shook, partly from the long confinement, partly from the dread of watching one by one as the women were called in. Each time, the low hum of the X-ray machine echoed ominously. When his turn came, he trailed the woman who shoved him forward and barked at him to press against the cold metal wall. Moments later, another woman entered. The left side of her face was grotesquely disfigured, crushed and badly healed, forming a permanent sneer. She carried a tray of small cups filled with liquid. "Drink," she commanded, "to pass packages." The younger women complied immediately. Henry hesitated, his hand shaking as he reached for a cup. The woman with the broken face noticed and studied him with disgust. "Why they send us old man?" she asked her companion in heavily accented English. "He can barely stand and only had 4 packages inside him." "Don't know," the other replied. "Need to ask boss." The broken-faced woman leaned close to Henry, her breath rank. "Drink, dedushka, or I make you drink." Henry swallowed the bitter liquid. In his mind, he cursed himself for trusting Erica. He should have let her shoot him in that cabin. At least it would have been quick. Now he was alone at the mercy of these monsters. "I take old man to Bruna," the broken-faced woman announced. "She deal with him. Maybe we send message to suppliers. Next time, no ransacked grandpa who can't even stand straight. This one's a faulty product." The other women stared at Henry with empty eyes. They'd seen too much to feel sympathy. The woman grabbed his upper arm, her fingers digging deep. His thin muscles offered no protection. He felt her grip grinding against bone. "Move," she ordered, dragging him toward the door. Henry stumbled along, wondering if he'd ever see daylight again, if this nightmare journey would truly lead to Zoey, or if he'd simply disappear like so many others who crossed these women. They exited the room and walked through a series of corridors, each one dimmer than the last. The broken-faced woman's grip never loosened on Henry's arm. Finally, she stopped at a black door, its paint peeling like diseased skin. She yanked it open, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. The temperature dropped with each step down. At the bottom, another black door waited. The woman pushed it open and shoved Henry through. He stumbled, nearly falling, but she caught his arm again and jerked him upright. The room that greeted him was a nightmare made real. Red walls, red floor. Then he realized with horror when the smell hit him like a physical blow, raw meat and human waste. The stench of a slaughterhouse mixed with a septic tank. In the room's center, 3 women knelt in a line, blindfolded, gagged, hands bound behind their backs. They trembled but made no sound. A woman stood with her back to them, gun raised, aimed at the first woman's head. "Gina, wait! Where's Bruna?" The broken-faced woman called out. "I need her to deal with this. Supplier sent us old man. For mule." The woman called Gina turned, and Henry's world tilted. Despite 19 years, despite the different context, he knew that face instantly. Riley Moreno, his daughter's friend, the lead guitarist of Crimson Fireline. Her baby face had barely aged, still boyish even now. Their eyes met. Recognition flashed in hers, followed immediately by alarm. "I think you are," Henry began. Riley cleared her throat loudly, cutting him off. "Get me gagged, blindfold, zip ties!" she barked at the broken-faced woman. "Now!" The items were produced quickly. Riley moved with practiced efficiency, gagging Henry first, then blindfolding him, finally securing his wrists with plastic. "Ease. I'll take him to Bruna," Riley said. "Let her deal with this." She pressed the gun into the broken-faced woman's hand. "You finish with these 3. Even through the blindfold, Henry sensed the woman's pleasure. "Da, I finish." Riley's hand closed around Henry's arm, gentler than the previous woman, but still firm. She guided him toward what he assumed was the door. Behind them, he heard footsteps, a woman's muffled whimper. They were climbing the stairs when the first shot rang out, then the second, then the third. 3 precise executions. Henry's stomach heaved, but the gag prevented him from vomiting. Tears soaked into the blindfold. Riley kept pulling him upward through the black door back into the upper corridor. Her pace was quick, but not panicked. This was routine for her, Henry realized. His daughter's friend, the shy girl who'd blushed, when boys spoke to her, had become this. They walked in silence down another corridor. Henry counted his steps, trying to maintain some sense of direction, but the blindfold made everything disorienting. Finally, Riley stopped. He heard a door open, and she guided him inside what felt like a smaller space. An office, perhaps, away from the warehouse's main floor. The horror of what he'd witnessed, combined with the shock of seeing Riley, made his legs weak. If Riley was here, alive, working for these monsters, then maybe Zoey was too. They entered the room, and Gina stopped. She knocked on an inner door. 3 sharp raps, a pause, then 2 more. Henry heard locks turning from inside. The door opened, and he was pushed through. "Sit," Riley commanded. Henry lowered himself carefully into what felt like a leather chair, still blinded and bound. He heard the door close and lock again. Then hands were at his face, removing the gag. He gasped for clean air. The zip ties were cut next, freeing his wrists. Finally, cold fingers lifted the blindfold. Henry blinked in the fluorescent light, and his heart stopped. Zoey knelt before him. His daughter, after 19 years, his daughter. The same long, wavy hair, though now streaked with premature gray. The same pale skin that strangers had often mistaken for albinism. The same full lips and deep-set eyes. Older, harder, but unmistakably Zoey. "Zoey?" Henry's voice cracked. "Is that really you?" He turned to look at Riley, confirming what he'd suspected. "You're Riley, aren't you?" "Erica kept her promise," Zoey said quietly. Riley scoffed. "That woman's no less evil than Alexandra Okolova." Henry's eyes swept the office. A nameplate on the desk read, "Manager." His stomach sank. "What? What happened? You both work for these people." "No time to explain," Zoey said urgently. "And no one can know we're related. Understand?" Before Henry could respond, chaos erupted outside. Women shouting in Russian and English. The sharp crack of gunfire, screams. Riley moved instantly, throwing the deadbolt on the office door. Zoey went to a filing cabinet, yanked open a drawer, and pulled out 2 handguns. "There's a phone." Henry spotted it on the desk. "We should call the police. They'll rescue us. We can return to our lives." "No, Dad." Zoey's voice was hard. "This is our lives now." "What?" "Erica's women are taking this place. She promised to reunite me with you if I took her side. She'll protect us." "No." Henry stood, reaching for the phone. "It doesn't have to be this way." Zoey stepped between him and the desk, blocking his path. Her eyes were cold, unfamiliar. "You don't understand. I didn't expect to be reunited with my daughter like this." Tears streamed down Henry's face. "You're not a criminal. You're a victim of a plane crash." "Sometimes there's a thin line between victim and criminal," Zoey replied. "We've got to do what it takes to stay alive." Heavy fists pounded on the door. Bruna, a thick Russian accent, called, "Open door. We got attacked. Alexandra gone. We need to secure office." Zoey and Riley exchanged glances but remained silent. More pounding, more demands in Russian, then gunshots right outside the door. The Russian voices cut off mid-sentence. "Henry." Heard bodies hitting the floor. A different knock came, lighter, almost casual. "It's me," a Mexican-accented voice said. "Erica." Riley looked to Zoey, who nodded. Henry watched his daughter grip her gun with practiced ease. Whatever innocence she'd once possessed had been stripped away by 19 years in this hell. Riley unlocked the door cautiously. Erica Canvo entered quickly, blood splattered on her shirt, the acrid smell of gunpowder clinging to her. She closed the door behind her and threw the locks. "It's done," Erica announced, wiping sweat from her brow. "I and my women held our side of the deal. This empire is mine now." She looked directly at Zoey. "I want your loyalty, both of you. I dealt with Alexandra real good in her office. Put 3 bullets in her head. Alexandra Okolova promised us fame," Erica continued. "Said if we trafficked drugs and laundered money through tours, she'd make us stars. But she never fulfilled that promise. Kept me here as her manager while she lay with girls and counted money." Erica's eyes gleamed. "I'm not like Alexandra. As we've discussed, I'll continue this empire, but I'll also make you a real band again, give you the fame you deserve. Don't worry about the drugs. Just funnel the dirty money for me. That's your end of the bargain." Riley stepped forward. "You didn't bring my parents. They're both dead." "Died years ago," Erica said bluntly. "But I fulfilled my promise to Zoey. I brought Henry." "I didn't like what you did to my dad," Zoey snapped. "Using him as a mule, making him swallow packages. What the hell were you thinking?" "Your dad was about to visit your mom," Erica retorted. "What did you expect me to do? If he told her anything, she would have called Alexandra and blown the whole operation. Our entire plan would have unraveled." She glanced at Henry, her tone sharp. "And if I hadn't made him swallow those packages, he wouldn't have ended up here in your office. Might have gone straight down to the incinerator." Her gaze lingered on him before shifting to Zoey. "He was just so difficult to convince. Reminds me of someone else I know." She narrowed her eyes. "I'm guessing none of you realize the police already found the jet this morning." "They did?" Riley asked, shocked. "News hasn't reached us inside yet." Henry spoke up, his voice trembling. "Yes, I saw it myself. The Navy pulled it from the ocean." He turned to Zoey, comprehension dawning. "Your mom knew about all this all along?" Zoey sighed. "It's a long story. I'll explain everything later. You remember Mom was our band manager. Her eyes flicked to Erica's hand as it hovered near her gun once more. "I'll keep my promise. As we agreed, I'll hold up my part." Erica extended her hand, and Zoey took it, their grips firm but tense. "I'm sorry, Dad," Zoey said, her voice low. "But this way, we can be together again, and safe." Henry clutched his mouth as the weight of the betrayal crashed over him. His knees gave way, and he caught himself against the table. All these years, he'd believed Michelle had been broken by grief. But now he realized her time in the mental facility had been a calculated escape. Once released, she'd quietly returned home, dodging the police and their questions. The woman he had married, the mother of his child, had been the architect of this nightmare. And now, he was losing his daughter as well. The three women began discussing logistics, body disposal, cleaning crews, which of Alexandra's women could be turned, and which needed elimination. They spoke casually about murder as if planning a business merger. Henry's eyes found the phone on the table just behind him. Agent Dana Truitt's number was burned into his memory. While the women plotted, he moved slowly toward the desk. His fingers closed around the receiver. He lifted it silently and began dialing. No. Erica spotted him and drew her gun. Zoey lunged for the phone, trying to pull it from Henry's hands. "Dad, don't!" But Henry held on desperately. He heard the line connect, heard Agent Truitt's voice. "FBI, Truitt speaking." Erica's finger tightened on the trigger. Everything happened in slow motion. Riley charged toward Erica. "Yeah," gun fired. Zoey threw herself between her father and the bullet. The impact spun Zoey around. Blood bloomed across her chest. She collapsed into Henry's arms. "Help!" Henry screamed into the phone. "Help us!" Riley slammed into Erica, sending the gun skittering across the floor. In one fluid motion, Riley scooped it up and fired, once, twice, 3 times, 4, 5. The shots were precise, grouped tightly in Erica's chest and head. Erica crumpled, blood pooling beneath her. Riley grabbed the phone from Henry's shaking hand. "This is Riley Moreno," she said rapidly. "I'm one of the missing band members, the lead guitarist from Crimson Fireline. I'm here with Zoey Hayes, our lead vocalist, and her father, Henry." She gave their location quickly. "Zoey's been shot. She's bleeding badly. Alexandra Okalova's dead, but there are still Erica's women here. Send a tactical team now." "Units are en route," Agent Truitt said. "Find somewhere safe and barricade yourselves in." Riley hung up and immediately began reinforcing the door, dragging a heavy filing cabinet in front of it. Henry cradled Zoey on the floor, pressing his hands against the wound. Blood seeped between his fingers, warm and terrifying. "Stay with me," he begged. "Please, baby, stay with me." Zoey's eyes fluttered. Her breathing was shallow, labored. The blood was soaking through her shirt, pooling on the floor. Outside, they heard sirens approaching. Not just a few, but what sounded like an entire fleet. The warehouse erupted in gunfire as the tactical teams engaged the remaining criminals. Henry kept pressure on the wound, his hands slick with his daughter's blood. He prayed harder than he'd ever prayed, begging God to spare his child. The gunfire outside intensified, then gradually died away. Minutes that felt like hours passed. Finally, a voice called through the door. "FBI tactical team. The building is secure." Riley moved the filing cabinet and unlocked the door. Tactical officers in full gear flooded in. "We need medics," one shouted, seeing the blood. "Did you check the underground red room?" Riley asked urgently. "The incinerator all clear," an officer confirmed. "Whole facility is secure. Paramedics!" Rushed in with stretchers. They gently but quickly moved Henry aside and began working on Zoey. Another team checked Erica, but it was clear she was beyond help. "She's deceased," one paramedic announced. "Multiple gunshot wounds to the head and torso, massive blood loss." An officer approached Riley. "Who shot her?" "I did," Riley said steadily. She was going to kill us all. They lifted Zoey onto the stretcher. Henry followed, his blood-stained hands trembling. As they moved through the warehouse, he saw the aftermath of the battle. Bodies covered with sheets, evidence markers, FBI agents documenting everything. After 19 years of wondering, he'd found his daughter. But at what cost? They were led out of the warehouse into the cool night air. Emergency vehicles filled the parking area. Ambulances, police cars, FBI vans. Red and blue lights painted everything in shifting colors. Paramedics loaded Zoey's stretcher into one ambulance, while another team placed Erica's body bag into a separate vehicle. Henry saw Agent Dana Truitt stepping out of a black SUV, having just arrived. The FBI field office was clearly further away than the local tactical team's base. "Mr. Hayes," a paramedic called urgently. "We need to leave now. Every minute counts." Dana jogged over. "Go," she said firmly. "I'll meet you at the hospital. We'll take Riley's statement here." Henry turned to where Riley stood with officers, her hands uncuffed, but her posture defeated. "I'll see you later, Riley. We'll talk." "I'll do the right thing," Riley promised, her voice thick. "I swear." "Thank you," Henry whispered. He climbed into the ambulance. The doors slammed shut, and they raced through the streets, siren wailing. A paramedic worked over Zoey, checking vitals, adjusting IV lines. Henry gripped the bench seat, watching his daughter's pale face. At the hospital, everything moved in controlled chaos. Zoey was whisked to the emergency room while Erica's body went to the morgue. Henry found himself in a waiting area, fluorescent lights harsh overhead. His heart was racing dangerously. Dr. Peterson had warned him repeatedly about stress with his condition. He forced himself to breathe slowly, evenly. He had to stay strong for Zoey. A sudden cramping in his abdomen made him gasp. The medicine from the warehouse was working. He flagged down a nurse. "I swallowed drug packages," he said urgently. "I need to pass them." The nurse's eyes widened. "Come with me immediately." They rushed Henry to a specialized room. The nurse put on gloves and gathered supplies, a bedpan, evidence, bags, and medical tools. "We need to retrieve these safely," she explained. "The packages could rupture if not handled properly." Henry was positioned over the bedpan. The nurse monitored him closely as his body expelled the packages one by one. Each was carefully retrieved with forceps, inspected for damage, and placed in evidence bags. The process was humiliating but necessary. 4 packages recovered, the nurse documented, all intact. Afterward, Henry was admitted for observation. He explained his early-stage congestive heart failure to the medical team. They ran EKGs, took blood, monitored him carefully. The stress had indeed strained his heart, but he was stable. Hours later, as Henry lay in his hospital bed, Agent Dana Truitt arrived with her partner. "The doctors updated us," Dana said gently. "Erica Canvo died from massive blood loss, multiple gunshot wounds, and Zoey—" Dana's expression was grave. "She's alive, but in a coma. She flatlined twice during surgery, but they brought her back. She's critical, but stable. She lost tremendous amounts of blood." Henry closed his eyes. "Thank God she's alive." "Riley told us everything," Dana continued. "She's been completely cooperative. Do you want to know what happened in 1981? Henry nodded. "My daughter never got the chance to explain." Dana pulled out her notes. "According to Riley, your wife Michelle was their manager. She invited the band on what she called a celebration trip on a private jet, promised them a deal with an international distributor." She paused. "But on board, they met Alexandra Okolova. Michelle revealed the true agenda. The band would launder drug money through tours, funneling cartel cash through ticket sales and merchandise." Henry felt sick. Michelle planned this. When Zoey and Tracy refused, Michelle and 2 cartel enforcers pulled weapons. A fight broke out. Tracy was shot trying to fight back. Danny was executed for attempting to radio air traffic control. Casey was killed for resisting as well, but Zoey was spared because she was Michelle's daughter. Riley agreed to cooperate if they protected her family. She mentioned she was always the cute one, a crowd favorite. Alexandra saw value in that. For the laundering operation, Dana continued, your wife convinced Zoey to work for Alexandra, threatening that they'd kill you if she refused. After the murders, Alexandra needed to dispose of the evidence. The pilot, one of Alexandra's women, set autopilot toward the Wanda Fuca Ridge. They parachuted out where Alexandra's crew waited with transportation. Why wasn't it found? For 19 years? The plane flew low, avoiding most radar. Coverage over the Pacific in 1981 had gaps. The emergency beacon was removed, and the crash site was too deep for recovery technology of that era. Henry wept openly. My daughter worked for monsters for 19 years. I heard them talking about her taking lives, using women and children as mules. Alexandra and Erica are dead, but Zoey and Riley were just girls caught in my wife's evil. What happens to them now? Dana sighed. Michelle is being processed. The years she spent avoiding questioning under the guise of mental instability won't protect her anymore. We'll pursue charges. As for Zoey and Riley, it's complex. Prosecutors could frame them as willing criminals, but we're emphasizing they were coerced victims. The court will consider they were teenagers threatened with family deaths. Riley's cooperation helps immensely. With good representation, they might receive reduced sentences, or even immunity for testifying against the organization. Riley's parents died years ago, Henry said softly. She might not have known, isolated as she was. She's at the station now giving a full statement. I want to talk to her when I'm better. That can be arranged, Dana stood. We'll update you as things develop. After the agents left, Henry called for the nurse. I need to see my daughter. They brought a wheelchair, helping him transfer from bed to seat. The nurse pushed him through quiet corridors to the ICU. Through glass doors, he saw her. Zoey lay motionless, connected to multiple machines. A ventilator breathed for her. Monitors tracked her vital signs. Bandages covered her chest. She looked so young, so vulnerable. The nurse wheeled him inside and gave him privacy. Henry reached out with trembling fingers, touching Zoey's hand. It was warm, but unresponsive. My baby, he whispered. My sweet girl. Tears fell freely as he held her hand. 19 years of separation, of not knowing, of grief, all leading to this moment. His daughter was alive but broken, shaped by circumstances no child should endure. I'm so sorry, he wept. Sorry I couldn't protect you. Sorry your mother did this. But you saved me, Zoey. You took that bullet for me. He prayed then, pouring out his heart. God, please heal my daughter. I know she's done terrible things, but you know her heart. You know she was just a girl trying to survive. Please be merciful. Let her wake up. Let her have a chance at redemption. Henry squeezed Zoey's hand gently. I'll fight for you, he promised. Your mother should pay for her crimes, not you. You were a victim, my darling, my brave lost girl who did what she had to do. The machines beeped steadily, marking time. Zoey remained still, locked in her coma. But Henry stayed, holding her hand, finally reunited with his daughter. After 19 years of questions, he had answers. After 19 years of absence, he had presence. It wasn't the reunion he dreamed of, but it was real. He would sit here as long as they let him, watching over the child he'd lost and found again, praying for one more miracle, that she would open her eyes and call him father once more. Thanks for sticking with the story until the end. If you enjoyed it, give this a like and share if you haven't already, and subscribe for more.